This is the new Redcat Ascent. Now, Redcat sent this over, and this is their latest release. It's a flat rail style, kind of comp-oriented or high-performance-oriented truck. So I've got it here out on the rocks today at one of our local area competitions. This is the Sacramento Area Cone Dodgers comp. I've got my go-to comp truck there next to it, and we ran all the courses already today. Then we decided to take the Ascent out on those courses. Now, being that we already ran them, gives us a little bit of a leg up to know what lines we should choose, but it also gives us an idea of what we can expect the truck should possibly do. So I drove it on the first course, and this gate here, most of us were able to fit our trucks underneath of that little ledge to put ourselves in position to do a bonus line. It didn't quite make that. From there, we went to gate number 2, and we were able to normally climb up this ledge here to be able to side hill the next gate, but the truck doesn't have any additional weight in the front. This is a stock truck at this point, so just seeing what it would do. The only modification that I have done is that I am running a side-mounted battery, a very small, like an 800 milliamp side-mounted battery, and I've removed one of the battery trays to allow it to fit under there a little bit better. I do have the 2-piece body version, which is $299. So from here, this is when we started to notice mostly when the throttle control is jerky. It goes very quickly, it goes quick, fast, I should say. The low speed control is lacking. And also noticed from there, the drag brake is lacking. It could definitely use a little bit more drag brake or a little bit more controllable drag brake. It's just nothing, and then all of a sudden it's full on. Again, we've ran all of these lines already today, so we have kind of figured out what lines should work, or which lines we think should work with the trucks that we're used to. Now, I was driving a portal car all day, so I was expecting things to work in a very similar fashion to this truck, since it does also have portals. The stock tires have a decent amount of grip, although they're not very soft, so they don't have a lot of compliance, I would say, but they do still grip fairly well. The truck, again, is not light. It's got a decent amount of weight. However, it sits higher up on the chassis. So the truck feels decently planted when it's at most angles. But as soon as it gets past a certain point, it can be almost a little bit uncontrollable on the how quickly it wants to flop over and end up on its side or on its roof. Generally, out of the box, it's handling a lot of this stuff pretty well. The 4 drivers that drive this truck today are all some of the, I'll exclude myself from it, but the drivers placed very well in the actual comp today. So they know what they're doing, and granted, they've never driven this truck before, so a little bit of an unfamiliarity, but still you would expect them to be able to get the most out of it. The truck also has a limited amount of flex, and that's something that on this gate I noticed actually in more of a positive way than on some of the other gates where it was a hamper. But on this one, being that it didn't drop that tire down as much, it allowed me to carry that front up onto that ledge a little bit easier, even though I ended up touching that gate and ended up just driving over it since I'd already progressed past that part. I had already pointed out by this point in the course, so didn't end up actually finishing the full course. Next, I gave the truck over to Brandon, and I had him drive on course number 2. Now, I had audio recorded for all of these. We were all wearing a microphone and able to kind of commentate during our drive, but I had audio issues today, and the voiceover is the solution for that. Course 2 was a bit more difficult. Some lines that you had to be you had to drive with some finesse. And again, the low speed throttle control is where this truck suffers currently. Throwing a good system in this, Hobbywing Fusion, something like that, that would be easy. It would improve a lot of things about this truck. Putting some wheels and tires on it that gave it a little bit more forward bias, again, would help even further. A couple of things that are immediately noticeable. The weight of the truck is still pretty high, but I think that it would make the biggest difference. The tires again do okay, but they don't have a lot, they don't conform all that much. So most of us were able to climb that first like ramped slope face there during our normal runs. This one wasn't able to quite make it up there, so Brandon went around, then is backing down and going to try and walk the truck over. This is one of the situations where in the end the low speed throttle control and the kind of touchy or the on-off style of the drag brake ended up causing him some issues where he wasn't able to easily control it with the roll back, and ended up having to quickly catch it and send himself into an area where he wasn't necessarily expecting. So that was that little maneuver there. Ended up hitting the gate again just because the truck doesn't want to hold itself in place all that well. This is a pretty difficult climb here. It gets the truck super vertical, and without any additional forward bias, just didn't really want to bite. So worked at it, hit the gate, ended up backing out and just taking the easy side since that gate was already dead at that point. These courses are 10 gates each. 6 minutes on time is allowed per course. So we were still running the regular rules. 40-point out. So a gate is 10 points, a reverse is 1 point, and a rollover is 5. This was gate 6. Coming back up past gate 1, this climb through this little crack here was, you can see the right gate to gate 6 is on the right there. The left gate is just behind the rock on the left. This ended up being a little bit too tough of a climb for this truck today, and Brandon sat here and attempted this gate for as long as he had on time before it ended up just being too much for the truck. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind for the Ascent is the cost at $299. $299 is an excellent price point to get in. The radio on this truck feels good. I don't know if the radio has anything to do with how the low speed control is, but in general, $299 for this truck, it's a good starting point. Next, we gave the truck to Dean, and he drove it on course 1. This was one of the tougher courses of the day, a mix of some rock slab and some loose dirt. There was some tough breakover on this course here. That was tough for even a lot of the really well tuned and built trucks. But with the weight bias on this, how the belly is set up and everything like that, it suffered in a number of places. That low side gate number 2 was something that many people hit all day. On this gate here, with a little bit more forward bias, it would have a much better chance of pulling itself over that line. This truck just struggled with that finishing, getting itself over that lip. The solution to this gate ended up having to be momentum. Dean there almost had it up, corrected quickly, and just with the throttle control and the drag brake, it ended up flopping itself back out, and he ended up having to take a rollover. From there, he's going to take a bump at it, but when he does, he ends up having to hit that gate. The approach to gate 4, you come back out past 3, come around, do a little turnaround, and then try and position yourself over to approach gate 4. The servo on this truck is strong. It's not fast, but it's strong. Dean was seeing if he could kind of use the servo to wiggle the truck over and down so he didn't have to take a reverse penalty point, but ended up having to in the end anyway. After gate 4, it ended up just kind of sliding around that corner in a fairly lucky way. That provided an approach to 5 that wasn't too difficult. Gate 5, if you didn't know the line, was a tough gate, but with the right line, the truck went right up it. The loose dirt doesn't make things easy on this. Those tires do really well in loose dirt. It's just on the rock and where you're looking for them to conform a little bit better that they don't necessarily do as well. Some of this rock had a sandy, dusty covering to it, and those tires wanted to wash. This is a point where drag brake and the throttle control and the weight up top was difficult. Trying to get this to hug around that corner on this really off-hill approach, wasn't quite able to do it. I think Dean ended up just coming up, tagging that gate and going through to keep going. 7 was just a shooter if you didn't have stability down, so he just went right through it in a fairly easy fashion. Easy V crack for gate 8. Gate 9 is a drop off, just lining up, dropping down. Wasn't necessarily an easy one. A lot of people had trouble with sliding and hitting one of the gates. This truck went through it. It does roll over on itself pretty well. Like if you roll the truck on its side, you're able to recover it in most cases. So the body does pretty well there. The tumble down the hill on this one, just tough to keep the truck necessarily on its wheels at all times. But again, it finished this course, or pretty close to it on points, which was a difficult course to do so on. And then we also let Daniel drive the truck on that last course as well. So same course that Dean just drove. Daniel, I believe, was the winner of the comp today. Daniel also ended up clipping that lower gate on 2, trying to get the truck through there. Bounced the truck through 3, still rubbed that gate. Just not enough super low speed control to get it through there and do it in a controlled way. Coming out, swinging around, getting an approach for gate 4. This was the best approach for the day, was to come out for 4, end up swinging to the left and doing a U-turn out there in the more open area and approaching 5. Dean had that little hop that ended up putting him down in position, but that was the more controlled way to do it. Steering on the truck, as far as steering angle went, was not too bad. Felt pretty decent all day. Didn't seem like it was something that was absolutely hampering anything. Daniel had the same comment with the stability. Felt nice and stable until just a cliff. You didn't feel it wanting to flop as much. It just would all of a sudden end up flipping over, which made it a little bit more difficult to predict the truck. And I think that's partially the lack of flex that the truck has. If you can getting more flex out of this truck, I don't think will be difficult, either from relocating, shock angles, things like that, or changing the shocks, changing the spring setup. Shouldn't be too difficult to do to end up getting this thing to have more suspension flex and make the performance a little bit better. We don't want a ton of flex. About the height of a tire is pretty good, but this is probably about half of that is all. So you're not going to be super impressed by the flex out of the box. Fixing that, not going to be the biggest hurdle. Daniel didn't go back and reapproach gate 6. He just ended up moving on and going towards gate 7. Gate 8, he ended up going a little wide. Probably steering wasn't quite where he wanted it, but ended up getting through it without having to take a reverse. Working again that steering servo, which is impressively strong. It'd be nice if it was faster, but still the strength of the servo is decent. Daniel made that drop through 9 look pretty easy. This was a bonus over here. Just forces the truck into a different position and a different approach to the final gate 10. Daniel also had this hill, it may look fairly flat, but it's a pretty decent slope through here. It's always hard to tell through camera angles, but finishing in 6 minutes really came down to the wire for Daniel on this course. I think he ended up having about 15 seconds left of the 6-minute time limit that he had available, but it did end up getting through there on gate 10 before the end. That did it for the drive of the Redcat for the first time. Again, for $299, I think that is the part that has to be considered the most. It drove well for $299. It's a good starting point to get you there. If you're just looking for a high performance, truck out of the box, I think compared to the Gen 9, you're going to be in a much better place. If you're comparing a Redcat to Redcat, for that reason, a real decent start. You're going to save some money, and the performance is going to be better. Is it going to be an absolute comp winner out of the box? No. It needs a lot of tweaking before it's going to be a real competitive truck. But for a starting point, for the price, I think they did a good job on this one. Body's a little tall. Notice that in a number of spots. If you enjoyed this fun little comp drive of the truck, let me know what you think. Are you going to buy one? Hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. Thanks again. See you on the next one.